Matt Gronberg, bro. You're 26. You have a sick business bringing in, what, $7 million a year, you said, I think, before this?
7 million top line, growing 100% year over year.
How much?
100% year over year.
That's awesome, dude. Congrats.
Thank you.
And you kind of went through like every young entrepreneur's dream, which is going on the Shark Tank. And getting a shark. And I think the coolest shark, and probably the most valuable. I'm really excited to get into that. We'll leave who that shark is till that part of the story. But yeah, you're killing it, bro. And you're good ass dude. I met Matt at the gym. Everyone always shits on me all the time. Why would you spend $400 a month on a gym membership? Because you get to meet guys like Matt. So thanks for being on. I'm excited to dive in and hear more about the story, dude. But yeah, take us through like the Matt Gronberg lore, right? You have this successful business right now. Have you always been an entrepreneur?
Sure.
There's this new.
So I think most people have this kind of like story that they tell in modern entrepreneurship that like from birth, I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. For me, that was not true, right? So for me as a kid, I grew up, I was good at school. I didn't fit any of the narratives. I wasn't flipping cars when I was 9 years old. I was like a healthy, good student. I wanted to be a doctor. But the thing that I attribute into my entrepreneurship is my family said, hey, you're going to have to find a way to make money really early on. And actually in Massachusetts, the one thing that prevented me from making money was I literally wasn't old enough to get a job before I really wanted to make real money.
Yeah.
So at 11, I asked my dad, I'm like, hey, can you just teach me how to like wash and detail cars? And so that was like kind of like my first entry into like, hey, I'm going to do something. I'm going to print out like a flyer. I used the word art on Microsoft Word. And I was like, I'm going to go around the neighborhood and try and wash cars. And then the next year.
That's a great first business for anyone watching too.
Totally. And when you're a kid, you start with like $10 car washes and like you just do the very basics, but then you can add detailing the next year, right? You start vacuuming the interior and you add little things here and there. Then you add waxes. And by the time I was like 13, I was working with a lot of like the people in my church, which was like my community at the time because my mother's a pastor of a church.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Where are you from?
So I grew up in Massachusetts in the North Shore in a small town called Boxford. There's 8,000 people. There's no sidewalks. There's no traffic lights. And there's one business that was grandfathered in, and it was an ice cream shop.
Are you serious?
Very serious.
Wow.
Yeah. You didn't even know Massachusetts could be rural, but it is in some parts. But my church community was awesome. And by the time I was like 13, I was doing a car a weekend, sometimes 2 cars in a weekend, one Saturday, one Sunday. It would take me all day, but I was making like $100 a car. And that was like really, really good money for somebody who couldn't even get a job.
You're rich at 13 with that.
100%. So that was kind of like my hook of like, okay, you can do the basics and like you don't know at the time, but now as an adult, I like to study certain like psychology things. And I know as there's like this thing called like the critical period or like a development period. I want to say it's like 7 to like 13, where a lot of people that become really good at something started around that age and got like insanely good at it.
Yeah.
Like I would guess that's where Tiger Woods ingrained his swing.
Yeah.
I assume that's when Warren Buffett was starting his like pinball business. So I'm pretty lucky that I did have to start it around that age because I think it helped me later on.
Nice. And would you say that you think being like a young, cute kid was in your favor? Hey, can I wash your car? Like,
yeah.
I feel like a lot of people think age is a barrier to entry. They think, oh, I'm young. I can't be an entrepreneur because I'm young, right?
Totally.
Dude, people want to help you.
100%.
People want to help you. They want to buy from, like, why do you buy the lemonade? You know that shit's made from concentration. Like, you know that that's not fresh squeezed.
No
you
way.
know that it's probably gross. Some little nasty kid putting his hands in there, grabbing the money. Oh, let me get you a cup. Just dips his hand in it, pours you. You buy it because you want to support, right? And you usually give them like $5 instead of the $2 it costs.
100%. And like rule number 1 is you got to use what you have. And if you are a kid, right, your asset is your age, right?
Yeah.
You are young, you're cute, you're impressionable. People want to help you more than they care about your product. And so I'm sure that's why the church community was like, oh my God, he has the courage to ask to wash my car. I'm going to do it regardless of the outcome. And then if you do a good job, they go crazy. Like they'll tell everybody this 13-year-old just detailed my car and it actually looks great. So then you get your first taste of referrals.
Right.
And so it was a great gateway drug business. The other thing that I think is interesting about that like skill development, which again, I didn't know at the time was going to be helpful. And then it turned out to be really helpful. Is there was a ton of stuff related to like philanthropy and fundraising and charity that I got super involved in. And so do you remember when you were a kid, did you guys have like Relay for Life? like a cancer walk in your town, or like jump rope for heart, the little fundraisers?
I'm sure there was something like that. I feel like I have memory loss, but I'm sure there was something like that. I don't remember much.
Basically, they give you, like, as a teenage kid, they give you like a packet, and they say, hey, if you raise $500, you get like this cool galaxy projector, and if you raise $1,000 for cancer, right, then you get the new Xbox, and like it's this list of prizes, and then the top prize is like a vacation or something crazy. So I took that. Most kids take that and throw it away, or they give it to their parents and they say, can you email it to your colleagues, your coworkers, and help me raise money?
Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. Yes, we did have something like this. With chocolate though. But yeah, continue.
Okay. So you get the,
Yeah, it's sold chocolate bars, I think.
My parents, and I really respect them for this, they made me get on the phones and cold call people. They were like, you're going to pick up the phone. You're going to call every single one of the people that you've met in the church, family, friends, and you're going to ask them for money. And so again, the pitch is very different when you're a kid, but I think a lot of that was like my first cold calling, my first ability to sell, my first ability to ask someone for money. It just happened to be for a good cause instead of my product.
So were your parents entrepreneurial, or they just were like, you got to figure it out on your own?
Yeah, I, again, didn't realize a lot of this at the time, but my dad in many ways was an entrepreneur. He just didn't call it that. He worked for himself. He was a first aid CPR instructor, and he found a great niche, and he would go to construction groups, and they had a law that a certain percentage of the workforce had to be annually certified on how to give first aid CPR. And so once a year, they would just call him up. He would do it for this construction group, and then he would do it for this cruise line. And all of these laws basically forced them to renew once a year and basically use him. He did a great job and he got renewals. So he was an entrepreneur.
Very niche.
Very niche.
Very niche.
But he found it and it worked. That was what he did most of his life.
Interesting. Okay, so he kind of forced you to get a little uncomfortable. That's awesome.
Totally.
And then going forward a couple of years, can you tell it? So for everyone who's listening and watching, you run Storage Scholars.
Yep.
I know that the business started, at least you're helping college students move in and out of college, but now it's turned into furniture setup, or what? Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, totally.
Can you actually take us through like how did this business start? Where's the beginning of this?
Sure. Do you want high level what the business does?
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great actually.
Okay. So from a 10,000 foot view, Storage Scholars is a pickup, storage, and redelivery service for college students. And so we do that at 150 colleges throughout the country. It mostly is used by an out-of-state or international student. So I lived in Boston. I went to a school in North Carolina, about a 14-hour drive away. And so I would have been the perfect customer. This company would give you boxes. They would send a team of movers to your room to pick it up. They'd put it in climate-controlled storage for the summer, and then we would redeliver it so it was ready and waiting in your new room. So that was like how the business
Do you do it at U of A, Harvard of the West?
We do at U of A, the Harvard of the West. I've heard that many times.
Nice.
Yes.
Okay, sweet.
Some of the best and brightest. So that's what the service was intended to do. And how it started actually did not begin with me at all. And so I give a lot of credit to my co-founder and business partner, Sam Chasen. He arrived at Wake Forest, and he basically went in with the goal of how do I cash flow my way through college? Which is a very irregular thing for an 18-year-old to think.
Yeah.
He was taught, do not have debt. His parents said that they would pay for the cost of a state school. And he said, great, that leaves me with basically a bill of like $30,000 to $40,000 a year, depending on scholarships, for me to pay off. So
is Wake Forest pretty expensive or what?
It unfortunately is. And I think it keeps getting more and more expensive. Really? It was a great education. I don't have bad things to say, but I think cost of attendance is over 80 grand.
Wow.
Yeah, at this point. So at the time it was like 70, which was pretty intense. And so he had two international homemakes, one from Ethiopia, the other from China. And they kind of looked at him as the resident American friend. He had a pickup truck, and they were like, hey, we just looked it up on FedEx. It costs $650 per box to send my stuff back to Ethiopia. What do I do? And he was a hustler. He was the entrepreneur from birth, selling candy out of his locker, that kind of kid. And he was like, I'll move it for you if you pay me. He went down the street, found a CubeSmart that had a first month of storage free deal. He used his pickup truck. He hired his club soccer teammates. He delivered the boxes to his residence hall, got in trouble for it. And then he found 64 kids to use the service by going door to door that first year. So give him a lot of credit. He had big balls and it paid off. That was like $18,000 in revenue for a kid his age. I came in a year later. I was a full year younger than Sam. And I met Sam basically on Halloween night. He was pledging a fraternity. I was rushing that fraternity. He picked me up in the car, And he basically said, hey, I see that you're doing this work study on campus, right? I was being an intramural referee. You know how you get like assigned a work study to make money as part of your financial aid? Okay. So I was making $7.25 an hour, the federal minimum wage in North Carolina, to get screamed at to referee flag football by a bunch of fraternity seniors.
That's the life.
So it wasn't great. I was doing that like 20 hours a week, and he's like, hey, why are you doing that? He's like, that's the most inefficient way to make money. And I was like, you're right. Like, I've done things that are more efficient than this. I don't know why I'm pouring this much effort in. And he said, okay, I've got this business. I need good talent. How about you come and work for me during move out, and you'll make more in a week working for me than you will in the whole semester doing this garbage. They're taking advantage of you. And I said, sounds pretty good. And so the very first thing I did to try and prove that I could be a good asset to Sam at the time is I immediately started to chat with all my Boston friends. And I said, can you please add your mom to the text thread? Because I was going to call all the moms and say, hey, I've got this storage and moving service. You live 14 hours away. I live 14 hours away. I'm using this service. Can I call you over winter break and talk to you a little bit about what kind of prices we can offer?
For like their kids?
For their kids.
Okay.
Because they were my friends.
At different colleges or the same college?
This was all at Wake Forest. So this was like, I literally texted like my hallmates that I knew as friends. And I was like, hey, can I talk to you about this service that I think we're all going to use?
Yeah.
And I was kind of like being the sales rep. So I picked up 6 closes. I think he gave me $50 per student. And I was like off to the races. I loved it. Then I pledged a fraternity. And literally the day that we got initiated, I went right back to Sam and I said, hey, I want to work again. He said, great, get a table, put up a banner, and then go start selling to your friends again. So that was like the whole last couple weeks of school leading up to finals. And then he's like,
were you
hey,
the only employee or were there other people too?
So there was no other people doing sales at the time that first year because it was still pretty early on. But during that year, he had expanded to the University of Miami and the Syracuse University. And that's a story that we'll get into, which didn't go so well. But yeah, it was me. And then there was one other manager at the time, which was his friend. And then there was one football player that was the entire moving force. It was like basically the 4 of us. There was so much competition on campus, believe it or not. There was like 7 or 8 companies offering this service because Wake has 82% of this students that come from out of state. And so we were kind of like the small fish just trying to fight to get some market share. And Sam at the time wasn't fully mastered in his hiring ability. So the 4 of us were trying to do like 170 moves, and the warehouse that we had rented was 50 minutes away in Greensboro, North Carolina. So what that week ended up looking like is every day from 8 a.m. until about 9 p.m., because we were late on every single pickup that we could do because we were so short-staffed. We would finish the moves on campus at 9 p.m. with like 3 or 4 fully loaded trucks with student belongings in it. And then we would eat a Chipotle bowl because it was the most calories we could get in an hour. And then we would drive an hour to Greensboro, North Carolina. And then the 4 of us would spend all night unloading these trucks and organizing them in this warehouse. So it was usually between 3 and 5 in the morning when we finished. We'd sleep a couple hours. We'd wake up. We'd do it the next day. To this day, that was the hardest I've ever worked in my entire life. And it wasn't even close. That was like the worst experience ever to do that for 9 days.
Were you guys at least like, did you guys at least look at each other like, fuck, man? Like, was it like funny at least?
It was hilarious.
You know what I mean? Right?
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean? When it's just that ass. Because I've been there before too. You just look at your partner and you're like, fuck this, bro. But you know that it's going to pay off. You just can like kind of feel it, if that makes sense.
100%.
Because the demand is there, which is good.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I wasn't even a partner at the time. So I'm like, why am I so motivated to do this? I'm literally making $10 an hour. Like, I did that whole experience. I didn't even make $1,000. Like, I made like $920 when you added up the hours. And I was like, all right, why am I doing this? And the answer was, I really believed that Sam believed in others. I knew he was willing to give up control and pass things on to grow his business. And I was like, maybe I can be that for him, at least at Wake Forest, so that he can grow elsewhere. And that was kind of my vision. I was like, if I prove it now, this is going to be a war story we all look back and laugh on. And to this day, I'm so glad that I did that, because that was definitely my like welcome to it story.
Yeah.
Right. And I think every entrepreneur needs one of like sleeping on the warehouse floor, whatever that is for everybody. There's always a day of reckoning. So I'm very glad we had that.
Yeah.
Turns out, right as we finished the move outs and everybody's stuff is going into storage, we're locking the warehouse for the summer. And we're all going to go back to our home. So I live in Massachusetts. Sam's driving back to New York. We take that drive and Sam asked me, hey man, is there any way that you'd be willing to run the deliveries, right? So all the stuff just went into storage. We got 4 months of it sitting in this facility. Can you drop it all off in August to where it came from, essentially, to all these students? And I was like, you didn't have this like fully planned out at the time? And he's like, no, like I do, like I'll manage it remotely. He's like, but I'm going to study abroad in New Zealand and I need somebody to run Wake. I'm like, you're studying abroad in New Zealand? When do you leave? He's like, July like 15th. I'm like, okay, so you're leaving the business that you just started to go across the universe, like 22-hour time zone difference. Like, this is fucking nuts. But I saw it as like a blessing. I was like, cool. He is actually trusting me to run the entire company in his absence. I'm going to treat this like a learning opportunity. And so every single day that summer, I would call him and I would say, this is everything I did today. How would you have done it differently? And I was...
What were you doing? Like, tell me what that was like.
So
what do you do over the summer while it's sitting there?
So the first year it was like, I was actually like also heading customer service. So I answered every phone call. I was trying to coordinate every early delivery because some kids come back for summer school. Other kids come back for internships. So I'm like calling movers that do live locally. I'm asking them and giving them directions on, the order should be in this area of the facility. I'm looking at a map that I drew with pencil and paper to remember where the orders were. And a lot of the time,
so you were outsourcing actual moving companies to remove it back in?
Not actual moving companies. It was other students that we had hired, right? So I found one of my friends who was doing summer school and I would pay them to do the work. But I was in Massachusetts taking the calls from the customers, answering the phone every day. And then I would call Sam and I'd debrief and I'd be like, this is what happened. This is how I handled it. How would you have done it differently? And he'll tell you to this day that was the most annoyed he's ever been in our entire relationship. But that is how I learned everything. Though. It was so good because the reverse would have been way worse if I just said I got it and he never heard from me.
Yeah.
So I just called him. I was a sponge. My goal was to replicate his brain. And I think by the end of that summer, he actually believed that I did. Like the way that he thought I was able to replicate. And so then he trusted me as an equal. And so that was like a really big deal for us.
Did you get to get all the revenue and keep all that while he was gone at least or what?
No.
Like, was he doing anything over there?
He was grinding. Was
he still trying to expand the business over there? Or what do you do from the other side of the country?
Well,
sales, maybe?
It's kind of. So to be honest, at the time, he also had the operations going in Syracuse and Miami that were both run by his friends. So I was owning Wake, which was like disproportionately big compared to the others, but he was dealing with his own fires.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, early lessons of hiring friends, those Syracuse and Miami branches both did not do so well. The Miami branch failed because somebody he thought was his friend went and did a lot of very unethical things. So he...
Like what? Can you talk about it?
Yeah, for sure. So early on, Sam made a very simple agreement. He's like, hey, if you open this branch, I'll treat it like a franchise. You can make, I don't remember what their original agreement was, but maybe it was like 10% of top line revenue. And that's a really flashy number. And our business is actually like in general, very flashy revenue numbers. The moving industry has a high ticket. It's a really expensive service to run. So it's nowhere near the same as bottom line. And so the guy looked at the numbers and basically said, I'm going to wait until like the last second. And right as I'm about to pick stuff up, I'm going to basically demand more money. And so he basically demanded more money, renegotiated the terms. He's like, look, you wouldn't be doing any of this without me. And Sam's like, yeah, I know, but like that was the agreement we made. You agreed to it a month ago. Now you're flipping it on me when I'm vulnerable. So be it. I'll give you more. Here's 15% of the revenue.
I had to do it.
And then it was 20% of the revenue. And then the next thing you know, at the end of the deliveries, it was like, wipe my hands clean. And the security deposit on the Miami warehouse had to be put in this guy's name. He stole all the money and ran, never to talk to us again.
Wow, that's crazy. And you have no idea where this dude is, what he's up to?
No, we saw him at like a beach in New Jersey, like years and years later. And it was one of the most uncomfortable interactions because it's like, what are you going to say? Like at the time, like $4,000 was everything to us.
It's the concept.
But yeah, and now at the time when we saw him years later, it didn't matter, but it was just like, wow, like he had to look at us in the face and be like, yeah, I did that.
What was that like? How do you approach someone like that?
Well, I mean, it was actually a pretty brief interaction because at the time we were just like, you know what, this person's been out of our life mentally for so long. Like we don't need to reopen and rehash that wound. So it was a very brief interaction and it was very surface level. And it was like, glad to hear you're doing well. I'm glad to hear that you guys kept growing the business. Like, sorry about all the stuff that happened. And we were like, you know what, go enjoy your day at the beach. Have a great time. Yeah.
So that was that. I feel like there would have been some hands thrown if it was me.
Maybe.
But interesting. Okay, so I mean, yeah, that's the thing is people probably from the outside are like, oh, that's a great idea. Sounds successful. There's multiple failures within that climb to getting to where you guys are right now.
Totally.
So what happens when he comes back, right? You're still technically an employee at that part, right?
Absolutely.
At that point.
Yep. So I was getting paid like a flat rate. I think we agreed to like $4,000 for the work, which is, again, still amazing money for an 18-year-old. Very thankful for it. So yeah, he came back for the second semester. So that was spring. Like he took his return in January. We debriefed everything. And I think, again, he still saw a lot of like value in the time. So he was like, Matt, you're going to be one of my right-hand guys. I want to expand this to all the local colleges since expanding to Syracuse and Miami was such a disaster. They're just too far away. I want to be able to drive to that campus locally if there's a problem so that we never get caught with our hands, up again. So I said, great, I'll help you go to Elon. I'll help you go to Duke. I'll help you go to High Point. And we picked all the local colleges we could drive to. And so that's when we started working on expansion. Again, a lot of the early hiring of first employees was calling up friends that we knew from high school that attended these universities, networking, begging people, hey, who's the smartest person you know? Who's really responsible? Who's hungry for money? And trying to cut similar agreements, except this time, instead of doing a revenue share, we just did flat dollar amounts. We were like, you get this per customer. Unfortunately, it was for less transparency, but we learned our lesson early on that if you show people the whole pie, they can immediately demand more without understanding the business.
For sure. It's interesting that, so this is an interesting way of growing a business. It's the exact opposite of what I do.
Yeah.
Seems like you guys look for people and then you train them how to do it, right?
100%.
You just take someone who's capable, obviously. Yep. You train them how to do this task that you already have expertise in, and then you scale that way. Yep. With my business, I'm the exact opposite. I'm like, all I do is look for people that are already really good at some specific thing that I have no idea how to do. Totally. And I just say like, you tell me what to do. So it's interesting hearing about this.
Well, and your situation is actually the right way to do business for most functions, right? Like at today's stage of business where we're at now, when I'm going and hiring like a new head of sales for the university division, I need that person to have done it before me and better than me. Where early on for some of these like grunt work moving positions, there's nobody who really has a career that has done that before that really wants to take it, at least for the price that we could afford.
Yeah.
So the whole I do, we do, you do was the only way that we could have grown it because we were so strapped for cash. Whereas you probably had some early success and you're like, I see the value in finding people and potentially even overpaying them to save myself time, which I now view as the right move for a lot of positions.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So how do you guys go about scaling? How do you go about attacking a new market? Is it with flyers, with ads? Is it setting up the tables?
Yeah. So the early way we scaled was number one priority is we had to find somebody that we felt could do the operation.
Yeah.
And if you were like an MBA student, they might tell you, do testing of ads, get market share, make sure that you know that you're going to have your product sell there, and then go and build the team and the infrastructure. We were just not confident enough to do that because I'm like, what if we get sales and we don't have anybody to service it? That was like my worst nightmare.
Yeah.
And so we were like, all right, employees first. Once we know we can do the job, then we'll start selling. And so we use those employees as kind of like hybrid roles. We're like, hey, throughout the spring, we need you tabling on campus. We need you chalking the sidewalks. We need you flyering the dorms. We wanted them to go to fraternity and sorority chapter events and talk because that worked at Wake Forest. We could like literally bring a box of cookies to a sorority, pitch our service for 5 minutes before their chapter started, and then walk out. And we would always walk away with sales. And so all the stuff that worked for us, we tried to replicate. And the truth is some of it worked, some of it didn't, because it's pretty hard to find a college kid who's willing to go and talk in front of a sorority confidently and get it done.
It's a lot harder to do that than it is to get someone who can move for 12 hours a day.
Exactly.
It's just it's the fear factor for sure.
For sure. And so now we've moved a lot away from the physical in-person marketing being the only thing we do. What I think it's good for is I think it's good for branding and showing that you're real humans, right? Yeah. When you have a table set up, regardless of whether that person is an effective salesperson, it's brand recognition. You see, okay, that's like Lucas who's standing at the table. I know he's the president of this fraternity. Therefore, I have some level of association, positive or negative, but I know that that's a real company with real people.
Yeah.
If you're only digital, especially with a service that involves you meeting the company, which is what we do, right? We meet our customers, we pick up your stuff. If you just blanket with digital, it's hard to know what's real.
I guess, but I feel like I would. I mean, if I saw an ad, if it was a good enough ad, I'd probably just be like, you know, yo, you guys are picking it up at 5? All right, bet. Let me know who to sell, right? Like,
For sure.
maybe I'm a little more trusting than most people. I don't know.
Well, let me rephrase. I think if you get emails from 6 different companies and they all say the same thing, right? One is owned by a large moving company, one's a local mom and pop, John's Moving and Storage. If you get emails from all of them and they all say the same thing of, we'll move your stuff for around this price, how do you stand out? Hopefully, the reason I think that we succeeded early on is because we had a human of, oh, the sales rep is my friend, right? I want to support Lucas because he's the campus manager at U of A.
I guess you're right. That makes sense. How did you guys position yourselves price-wise? Were you more expensive, less expensive, about the same as like a typical moving company? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah. That was actually one of the biggest decisions that we ever made as a business. So early on, the way that the service was priced is we looked at all the competitors, we went slightly lower, and then we said we would give slightly better service, and we thought that was the way to do business. And then we had a professor who called us in, who's still an amazing mentor and friend to this day.
Everybody listen up.
Yeah. And he said, listen, guys, you're doing it all wrong. You need to raise your prices to be the most expensive in the market because none of this matters. It's all perceived value. And he's like, you guys need to have enough gross margin to actually improve your business. So charge a little bit more now, take all the money, make your training processes better, and you can command a premium in the market. In fact, raising your prices inherently might make people think that you simply have a better service because it's more expensive. And so that was one of the biggest kind of changes for us as a company is we raised our prices to be the most expensive. And then we decided we were going to compete only on marketing and hustle and word of mouth. And I think to this day, that's still the right move because to me, with my personal belongings, I don't want to take the cheapest moving company.
Yeah.
I don't. Like, I think I would wig out a little bit. If you're by and large the cheapest, I'm like, what corner are you cutting with my personal stuff?
Yeah, it's the same thing when I got my car shipped to Texas because I didn't want to drive it.
Yeah.
I think I thought the same thing. I said, "Oh, this one's $1,300, but then the other one's $1,900. Like, why would something be that much cheaper unless it's going to be someone who has no idea what they're doing? They're going to hook my car up. They're going to chip it. All this, yeah. Totally. I fully agree, dude. I had that same conversation with my business partner. He's like, "We need to lower the prices. The conversion rate is down." I'm like,
maybe.
I was like, even if that does help, like the gross margin isn't good enough to scale this thing. No. So. That's valuable to know. I think most people at the beginning, they think, oh, cheaper's better, right? In terms of selling, right? But I think that's valuable.
Well, with the one caveat, right? Which is if you're going to raise your prices, you need to raise your service level to match those prices. So there's this game of like, hey, I'm going to raise my prices to a service level I might not even be at yet. And then I'm going to sprint to make sure I can deliver on the price that I'm charging that person. And that is the startup grind, right? Maybe your very first pair of shorts wasn't commanding of the price. And then you iterated and found a better supplier and made the fabric better. And now it's at the price. And like that is what startups do, right? You're constantly pricing and playing catch up to make sure you deliver on the promise.
Yeah. So, interesting.
Yeah.
What do you guys think was the biggest bottleneck in the early days? And what changed everything? Was there ever a moment like that, or was it like pretty like slow scale, you know?
Yeah.
Slowly taking over in 1 college, 2 colleges, 3 colleges?
For sure. So, I mean, early on, the biggest bottleneck was simply that we were full-time students. And so the level of time, effort, and energy that we could put in had to be all remote, had to be all seasonal, and we were just balancing coursework. And so I felt like because we grew it slow and steady, adding a few campuses a year, by the time we were seniors, the business was almost doing $1 million top line. And so that was like really reassuring to know that if we graduated, I think we just knew that we had to do more of the same thing. Because we were like, okay, if we got it to this point by doing, you know, X number of hours throughout the spring and kind of side hustling our way through, if we just do more, like what if instead of adding 2 campuses next year, we added 20? And so that was exactly what we did, right? So when we graduated, we moved out to Austin and we just ran the same playbook. We said, all right, well, one person can probably remotely manage 20-ish campuses. And so let's just add 20 campuses and see how that goes.
Are you hiring college students still? Or do you have people in each college town that are like, let's say they're like 26 years old now, they've been doing it for a couple of years? Or how do you manage the churn of employees and having to retrain people and re-vet and all that?
You are a mind reader. So that is the hardest part of my business, and it's not even close. So to this day, even in today's model, with the scale that we're doing, we still hire, recruit, and train college students to be a massive part of our workforce. I would say about 80%. The reason being is because college students know the campus, and they know technology. And so our entire customer quality satisfaction is based on our app. Every item needs to get scanned. Every item needs to be inventoried. We need photographs at pickup when it reaches the facility. And so a lot of that's improved over time. And kids our age grew up with a phone in their hand. So they're better than the average third-party mover, right? Because movers to this day are run on pen and paper, tape the thing to their dashboard and drive. It's crazy. So college students play a big role. Where college students don't work, right, is the buck can't stop at solely them, right? Because college students have college student excuses. Oh, like my dog ate my homework type shit on steroids, right? Family emergencies as soon as the work gets hard.
They don't give a fuck.
No, because you're not there for money. You're there for school. And so legit, I think if I could do one thing to my business model right now, and I'm working on it, is if I could make this job have a grade attached to it and get it as part of their class credit, I think it would change the way that people treat the company and the experience like a million times over, because people value their grades more than money.
Yeah. And I think like if I'm a student, I don't want to shit on myself, but I know a lot of my friends would do this too. If I was a student and I said, hey, I'm going to do this moving job Friday because I need some money. And then all of a sudden, let's say my mom Venmo'd me $100. Hey, sweetie, have a good time this weekend.
Yeah.
You know, happy Valentine's Day. You know, my mom would like send me $100 on Valentine's Day.
Totally.
If I all of a sudden like had $100, I'd be like,
I don't.
Yeah, I'm not going to do the moving job. Then you're cooked, right?
Or it's a nice day and somebody says danger. You go, all right, screw work. I'm going to go party.
Yeah,
there's way more fun things.
100%, right? Because I have zero. That's what I think to me sounds the most difficult. Is like if I actually have a job that I see a future in, I'm going to be a lot more tentative. I'm not going to fuck up because I see a future there. But if I know like this is a means to an end, you don't really care about your performance and how happy you're. I'm curious, do you know, like, have you ever heard of like Live In or Just College or any of those businesses?
No, what are they?
They're like spring break trip businesses.
Cool.
I know the founder of, or I know one of the top guys at Just College. I think they bring in like 60 million a year.
Okay.
Doing like spring break trips. I think this could be an interesting, I don't want to tell you how to run. I'm not telling you how to run your business, by the way, but I think it could be interesting.
Open to suggestions.
What they do is he has like, you know, his main guy's running all the colleges and, you know, he only hires the college students for sales related activities.
Totally. No, and
so I'd be interested if you like, what if you had movers that were like, you know, grown, capable adults, and then you just recruited, this is what this spring break company does, is they go to the coolest kids in every sorority and fraternity and say, if you get me, you know, you get a 5% commission on every sale you bring in. And if you hit $100,000, like when we go on this spring break trip, like you get your own trip paid for and you get the penthouse suite and VIP tickets and a table, right? I wonder if you could somehow implement something like that where you're using the fraternities for sales. Do you guys do that?
Yeah, so I think
as opposed to you going and pitching them, you just have a revolving relationship with the new incoming like social chair, president, whatever.
Totally. And so we now at this point, you know, I kind of shared probably how we did it early on. At this point, the way we utilize college talent is we have two separate like lanes. We have business development interns, which is exactly what you just said. People who are going and engaging with Greek life, people who are finding the leads, basically getting commission.
Yeah.
And then we have people who do the actual operations. And I agree with you. If I could have a business without the turnover and the excuses, I would. But I would say the best part about that is that they're willing to work seasonally. And so my ability to staff up college labor is really great. And the other thing I'll say is the moving industry is not very pretty to begin with. So everybody's idea of like a professional mover, you go, oh yeah, it's better to have a professional doing it who's an adult. Who do you think is a professional mover, right? It's usually not the cleanest cut. It's not always somebody you want in an 18-year-old girl's room. And I'm just being transparent.
No. That makes total sense, to be honest.
Yeah. We're moving college students. The stuff we're moving is not that
totally
heavy.
Get it. Yeah.
So we move boxes, we move bins, we use college students. It's a much friendlier interaction.
Okay. Oh yeah. I totally get it. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Interesting. Do you guys partner with colleges? I'm sure that's the next step in the evolution of the business, right?
Totally. And a lot of that was pure luck. And so I actually think this is a fun story. The way that we got our very first partnership started with a cease and desist letter.
Nice.
Okay. So for those of you who don't know, a cease and desist letter is when a lawyer basically says, you're infringing on my IP and I'm about to sue you if you don't stop right now.
Yeah.
And so we originally called the business Wake Storage. That was the name of the business. It was Black and Gold. And the idea was if people see Black and Gold and call it Wake Storage, they'll think we're just the school and we'll get a bunch of customers.
Smart.
And let me tell you, it worked. Worked like a charm. And that's how we got the cease and desist letter. So we get called in to the Wake Forest director of Res Life, the head lawyer, the procurement team. We had a big conference table and they were like, gentlemen, this is not acceptable.
Was it scary?
It was terrifying. And I'll be honest, I wasn't even in the room. This is from Sam, and Sam handled this because this was back in 2018 when I wasn't even fully invested, right?
Oh, wow.
And so Sam walked into this room.
Was he still a student?
Oh, yeah. He was a sophomore.
Okay.
Yeah, he was a sophomore. He walked in and the whole people were at the conference room and they're like, Sam, you're infringing on Wake's IP, right? This is not an acceptable way to do business on campus. And he's like, oh, yeah. And Sam is like the chief of waving his way in and out of these situations. He's the gas guy and he's really good at asking for forgiveness, not permission.
Yeah.
And so he goes, I'm so sorry about that. In fact, I actually noticed that before you even sent the letter and I knew it wasn't going to work long term. So I changed the name to Storage Scholars. Look, if you just type in Wake Storage on the URL, it'll already reroute you automatically to storagescholars.com. Wake Storage is a thing of the past. Don't even worry about it. And they were like, oh.
Did he have just set that up?
Yeah. Like 2 days before.
Nice.
And so he rerouted it all to Storage Scholars. And then, okay, they had an hour scheduled for the meeting. They solved their problem in 2 minutes. And so what did Sam do? Sam was like, well, do you mind if I tell you a little bit about the business and how we might be able to work together? And so he turned this negative into an hour-long pitch about why Wake should be his very first partner school and why it's better to work together than against each other. And about 8 to 9 months later, they were the very first people to ever sign a partnership contract with us. And what we pitched them, which is still the model we use today, which is even better for the students, is we say, okay, if you want to be a partner institution of Storage Scholars, we want to basically have students lock the stuff in their rooms and go home when they want to. And then we want to come in a week before students come back and pre-deliver it. So it's ready before you even get there. And that unlock makes for basically no ability to have service errors on time. You can't have a late mover. You can't have a bad interaction with a mover. You can't have anything negative because you leave on your own time. You just lock it in your room and go. You unlock your new room, whatever your sophomore or junior year housing is, and it's there. And so that model is what we really use to throttle the growth of the business. So partnering with institutions is slow. It's very, very hard. It's about a 2.5 to 3 year sales cycle on average because universities are beasts. They're basically extensions of governments.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of them are state governments, by the way. Like the whole California UC system, that's all like considered state government. And so getting a contract signed takes a while. But the beauty of that is once it's signed, it's also pretty long term. Right. And so a lot of my agreements.
Long term, huge income right away. You don't have to start small. That's awesome. That totally makes sense. I mean, I can only imagine his conversation in that room. Like, we're providing jobs for the students.
Totally.
You don't have to worry about your, your new intimidated 18-year-old freshman girl
100%
being violated.
Hit the nail on the head.
That's genius. That really reminds me, the last podcast I did in this room was with the founder of Saks.
Okay.
Who had started this underwear company. I think I'm probably wearing them right now.
Nice.
And then he went on to start like this fucking, I think he sold it for a little over 600 million, weed brand called Doja.
Oh yeah.
And he told me that his business practice and model was always the same thing. He said there were dozens of times when the Canadian government would say, you can't be doing this. And, you're cooked. Like, we're going to destroy you.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, I'm so glad you guys brought that up. Like, this actually really shows me that you guys care about the safety. And I completely agree. We've already changed this. Totally. Same exact attitude.
100%.
I actually have always had the opposite approach to that.
Cool.
Not the most effective.
What would you call the opposite approach to that? Asking for permission?
No. I'll just say it. Who cares? So like I was doing really well I'm growing my business.
Yeah.
I'm doing really well on TikTok Shop.
Sure.
Organically, sales are going up and up and up. Pure profit, no ad spend. Their reps reach out to me.
Yeah.
You should run ads. And I go, are you sure? They go, yeah, your business would kill it if you ran ads. So I start running ads. I trust them.
Yeah.
And, thinking that they have my best interest in mind, my profit goes to zero.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, that ROAS is terrible. My organic reach is instantly killed. And all of a sudden,
damn.
I'm hosed.
Yeah.
I'm losing money now. My business is growing organically. I'm losing money now.
Yeah.
And, some people you cannot compete against. They're just too big and there's no point even trying. But what I did was I went right into TikTok headquarters in Austin in person. I started like yelling at them. Yeah. I'm like, you guys are crooks. I'm like, you literally like, you lied to me. Like you destroyed my organic reach. Like it threw me in a different algorithm. Like I was calling them out. I don't want to get too into it.
Did it help? Did it help though?
No.
Okay.
Oh, I was fucking blacklisted for months. Not a sale for months, 100%. Oh. And of course, they'll deny that, but it's my fault. It's 100% my fault. It's a great lesson. There are, as a young entrepreneur, I think the best thing you can do is play dumb in a lot of ways and let the bigger fish little bro you is 100%. What this girl. I know this brilliant girl, crazy marketer, super successful. Yeah. Her name's Nicole. Yeah. She told me, she goes, Lucas, you got to let these older guys, whether it's a mentor or an investor, even if you do know best, even if you think you know best, even if you think you're completely right, she's like, let them little bro you.
100%.
And so I,
well, it's almost like what we were talking about yesterday. Sometimes like what we are giving to somebody way ahead of us as younger guys is you're just giving them a feeling like they're helping the next generation. So you don't rob them of that, right? Yeah. Sometimes you just let them tell you what the answer is, even if you knew it.
Yeah.
And then they leave feeling like they helped a young guy. So I'm surprised that going in person didn't work, because that would be the other takeaway for, I think, modern entrepreneurs is everybody's crazy on the internet. Everybody's obsessed with the internet. And like the internet is how you scale. Don't get me wrong. But the biggest deals and the biggest unlocks in my business have always come from in person.
Well, it was a very it wasn't like a nice meeting.
Understood.
Like,
yeah, you didn't go in.
I go in there, they're like, "Hey Lucas, we noticed you're not running ads anymore." I go, "Yeah, because you guys fucking cooked me." Like I go, I started like, I had like some insider information. I was like, I said like, my sales are cooked. Like, how does this make sense? I have more videos, I have more products, I have more affiliates posting, I have zero sales. I can see on the chart the day I started running ads, it went to zero. And they're like, yeah, maybe you should just spend a little more, all this stuff. And I said something that was like kind of supposed to be like very sensitive information that was not supposed to be known to the public. And everyone freezes. They go, where did you hear that? We need to know who said that now. I go, I'm not fucking telling you guys. So I did not walk away from that meeting as a friend.
Well, you weren't trying to make peace. You were trying to make war.
Yeah, but I don't know why I thought that was a good thing. And then, even a couple of weeks ago when I finally got back on a call with like my ad rep and all this stuff, I was like, hey, how's it going, man? Good to see you. You could even tell in his tone. He was like, what's up? He was not excited to talk to me. And at least that's what it seemed. And I was like, hope you had a great Thanksgiving, man. Yeah, business is killing it. We just had our best month ever. Really excited to get back into TikTok Shop. I'd love to become a big source for you guys in terms of not only my brand growing on TikTok Shop, but also, like, as I have a big platform. I can talk about how much of a great opportunity. And so I'm like,
you're trying to rebuild
that relationship.
You're extending the olive branch and you're hoping that it
think about it this way. I make my clothes in China, right? Yeah. My Chinese manufacturers will tell me, hey, your item costs $10. Yeah. That's what they say.
Yeah.
In reality, it probably costs $2 to make from them. And they tell you, oh, it's 10. If I go, no, it's not. Like I literally just traced the materials back. I did research on what you're paying your employees. Like it costs you a max of $2. That is not going to do me anything.
I agree.
But if I go over there in person, I take them 100%. Out to dinner and I say, listen, guys, like I really think this brand is going to be the next Lululemon.
Totally.
And I would love for you guys to be my long-term partner.
Yeah.
That's how you get that price down significantly. It's not by calling them out. So that's a great lesson that I've learned this year, because I've always been very like, I go up against the school board, pointing fingers. Like I'm very, what's the word? Antagonistic? No.
Confrontational. You're willing to fight. You're willing to fight for what you believe.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, and that's not the way to. Yeah, I mean, there's a time and a place for that, obviously.
And something interesting is my personality is actually rooted the exact same way yours is. I love to fight. I love to argue. It's actually been probably my biggest plague as a personality. But running this business specifically has unwound that, because early on when we were hiring our friends and our college students, as soon as I got into that like commander, do this, do that, like boss mode, I would lose talent. And then I'm pulling an all-nighter trying to go to Elon to fix the problem myself because I couldn't help myself but run my mouth. And so switching from like the commanding voice to like literally having to influence and pull something out of every single person and meeting them where they are drives me up a wall. It's not my strength, but I'm getting better at it.
It's like if you have some kid in control of your delivery and you're not there in person and he is the person you're relying on.
Totally.
Even if he did screw up, all you want to do is yell at this guy, how could you fuck this up, bro?
100%.
It was so simple. The directions were right there. You didn't move this, whatever. You really can't do that.
Yeah.
You just have to be like, hey, bro, I need your help, bro. We're relying on you.
Even when you think it's like the most, like the thing that you disagree with most at your core, right? Like I worked hard today, so I deserve twice the pay because I feel like it. Yeah. You're like, nothing about that is right, but you have to hold your tongue and be like, okay, tell me a little bit more. Yeah. How can we get to an agreement? Would you feel better if you got a bonus at the end of this? Because I need to understand that you're going to finish the job. Can we agree that at the end of job, you send me a picture, I'll send you $50 and then you actually follow through with it. It's like stuff like that is like very hard, but comes with time.
Yeah, 100%.
Totally. Yeah.
So let's talk about how you started as an employee.
Sure.
And then you worked your way up to co-founder. You have a pretty big piece of the company. Talk about that. What was your approach to that? How did that conversation go?
Yeah. I think, I think it all started with that early time period, right? When I showed that I was willing to do whatever it took for basically a non-monetary reason, like $10 an hour was not clearly the motivation. I think Sam really bought into that vision. And I was like, all right, I'm going to prove value first. I'm going to show you that I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And then I'm going to make my ask later, which I think translates to everything. Like if you're even an employee of a company, if you want a promotion, you don't ask for a promotion and then promise the work. I wish it was like that, but it's not, right? You need to work, show that you're capable of doing the job above you, and then ask for the promotion, and it'll come every time. So I think really the lesson is it's not in like a hostile way, but you need to basically gain some leverage, right? Like you need to show that you have a control on revenue. You need to show that you're vital to the operation. Maybe you're vital to their quality of life, right? If you're willing to take the calls at 11 p.m. and it allows them to chill, that's a different form of value. And so I kind of took that mentality without even knowing it of I'm going to take whatever burdens I can. I'm going to tie my comp to revenue, right? All of my agreements early on were basically revenue and growth based. I was like, for new campuses, I want, 25% of the profits or whatever it was. And so having that mentality of like, I don't want to be paid hourly. I don't want to be paid flat. I want to be paid for the value I can create. That was kind of my gateway, as I was like, I just want cash now. To get to equity, that's a huge decision for a guy like Sam, right? Sam's 19, he's 20 at this point now, he's getting older. And a lot of people come in and advise a young founder, don't ever give away equity. That's kind of good blanket advice for most people, but people didn't actually know what I was doing and like they didn't know anything about me. But if you hear a 20-year-old say, I'm about to give up a huge chunk of my company, most people would be like, pump the brakes. So I never fault Sam for being hesitant and like considering it hard and not wanting to give it up right away.
Yeah.
And the other big mistake that I made is when I was basically asking to be a part of the company and get cut in, we were living in Winston-Salem, which is the college town that we stayed in for the summer. We were doing the moves every day. We were trying to grow the business. And one night just at summer school, I had people over the house and I was really into poker, right? Poker was my thing that summer. We were running games of like nothing significant. It was like $5 or $10 hands, like very small buy-in. But growing up as a kid, I was really into magic tricks. So hold with me for a second. Yeah. Magic tricks, you really quickly learn how to do sleight of hand tricks with the cards.
Yeah.
And so when everybody's drinking, having a good time at these poker games, one night I got a little crazy. And again, it really wasn't about the money, but I'm obsessed with winning.
Yeah.
Like I will win at all costs, even if at this time it was an ethical mistake. And so I started juicing the deck. I started giving myself, king, queen, like, and I was getting royal flush multiple times in a night, which is like statistically almost impossible.
Yeah.
And Sam and our 18-year-old intern at the time together caught me.
How?
They were looking over from the kitchen and I was at the dining room table dealing these cards and they saw me pulling the cards underneath the table, cleaning the deck and then dealing it out. And so the 18-year-old intern pointed at Sam and was like, did you just see that? And he was the one who caught it. And we were really trying to impress this intern because he was brilliant. He was going to Duke. He was going to be our Duke manager. And so now I just put the company in a terrible position where the 18-year-old thinks I'm unethical. Sam, who's considering giving me equity in this company, he loses all trust. And so the following morning, He came over, really mature, and he's like, hey, Matt, I just want to let you know that like I saw something last night that I can't unsee. You're asking me to trust you with the bank account, operating power in the company, literally like equity, like my future. And I can't even trust you to run a card game. So what makes you think I can give you equity? And man, that was like one of the hardest days of my entire life. Like I was, swallowing glass the whole time. It was horrible. And the craziest part is I got on a flight and I went to study abroad about a few weeks later. So now the last interaction I have with who I thought was going to be my business partner long term was me fucking up.
Yeah.
Right. And so I had a full semester in Copenhagen, Denmark. And rightfully so, he brought in some people to try and replace my role.
Yeah.
And saved by the grace of God, all those people bailed out. They saw as soon as the work was hard, they all didn't want to do it. And so lucky enough for me, when I came back, I said, hey, I made a mistake, but I'm willing to work my ass off and regain your trust, and let's hit the ground running this year. And he took that opportunity and was like, let's do it.
That's, dude, I appreciate you admitting that.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a great lesson.
Totally.
And I have literally started like a very good opportunity of a business.
Yeah.
Been really excited about it and completely just exited myself from the equation.
Yeah.
Because I found out in two different businesses I was so excited about, had, I really believed in my partners, and they were really capable, like very smart individuals, hardworking, already pretty successful.
Totally.
And I decided not to move forward with both of those opportunities.
Yeah.
One of them because one guy was like a serial cheater.
It's a huge deal.
Huge deal. And then the other guy was, what did he do? One day we're hanging out and he mentioned to me like, he's like, yeah, I don't pay taxes. I was like, oh, I'd love to hear like your strategy, like however you get around that. I'm just gonna try and minimize mine this year. And he was like, no, like I'm just gonna run up a bag and dip the US in like 4 years.
Wow.
Before they can catch me.
Wow.
And he's super smart. I'm like, wow.
Is this the way you do things?
I'm not doing this anymore. No. Yeah. So thank God this dude ended up sharing all of my leaked business documents with Arya, fucking my arch nemesis on social media.
Unreal.
And then lied about it to my face. Oh, dude, that's so weird. I wonder how he got those.
Wow.
Lied to my face. Anyway, that's a side note. But I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
And that's really cool that your co-founder was willing to give you that opportunity.
100%. And I mean, I think a couple of things that I took away from that situation. I think one, if you're in an asking position, like you need to be so careful about everything, and you never know who's watching. So it's not like, I really don't view myself as an unethical person in any way. And I think I made a mistake, and I think that moment in my life was unethical, but I really didn't ever have any issues, like no cheating, no lying, no cheating on tests, like none of that. And so to me, that was like a canon event of, it doesn't matter how low you think the stakes are, a $5 poker game, every moment counts, because that cost me a piece of the company.
And it could have cost you everything.
Yeah. And it easily could have. And so I also really admire that Sam had the ability to be like, hey, maybe that's not who he is long term. And it takes a lot of courage from him as well.
Yeah.
So the next year, and this is kind of where I'll tie up that part of the story, is COVID hit. And again, this whole story is a lot of me being at the right place at the right time. But COVID hit. We were going to launch the business at about 15 campuses while we were students. And when COVID hit, all the students had their stuff locked in their room during spring break with nobody there, because they all went home thinking they were going to go and visit their families or do a spring break trip. And then everybody was like, don't come back. And so everybody had their stuff unpacked. So we had to basically rip apart our whole business model and then try and start offering video FaceTime packing services. And so the move out that used to take us 72 hours to move 500 kids took us 72 days. It took us the entire summer, 14 hours a day, FaceTiming students being like, do you want this shipped home to you? Do you want it thrown away? Do you want it discarded? Do you want it donated? Every single day, just like 5-6 rooms a day.
Do you at least get to increase the price or no?
We actually did not, because at the time, Wake Forest asked us if we would basically hold our prices true. And they said, if you hold your prices and you create packages that are in line with what we want, we will promote you as the partner. And at the time, we thought we might make $0. We thought the whole year might be a wash. So the fact that the institution was willing to make us their like COVID vendor, even though we were like a student business, was like worth it to keep our prices and take the hit on profit. So at the end of that, it was like, so like, I don't know, I don't want to say traumatic, but it was like so much work. I was in the trenches again, basically restarting the business with him. And he was like, all right, I think at this point, like I can trust you through and through. Like, I think we should be partners. And the other part of this is I told him, regardless of whether you're ready to give me equity, I'm willing to give up my dreams of going to medical school, and I'm all in on you before you're even all in on me, whether that's as an employee or as an owner. So I changed my degree from being biochemistry just to biology to squeeze and get a semester earlier of graduation, because running the seasonal business, if I graduated in December, I was good for busy season. So I had caught up to Sam's age effectively.
Yeah.
So that year was the nastiest year of our relationship, was negotiating the equity.
Yeah.
And so if I could give one word of wisdom to anybody who's getting into an operating agreement, for those of you who don't know, operating agreement is like the terms you set with your business partner on if stuff goes wrong, this is what we do. I would tell people, figure it out in a room together and have like a trusted family friend or advisor walk you through the questions you need to answer. Do not get lawyers involved until the end, because lawyers are literally there to bill you by the hour and tell you all of the worst possible things on the planet that your soon-to-be business partner could do to you.
Yeah.
And it was so toxic. They're like, well, what if he gets hooked on drugs and like steals company funds?
That's what my attorneys are trying to do right now with me and this potential person we're going to bring onto our team.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And they tell you all the worst possible things, and you're like, you start to get paranoid.
It's their job. It's their job.
It is. But at the same time, like, you wouldn't, if you are getting into business with somebody you think could do some of these things, well, you're probably in the wrong business partnership to begin with.
I agree.
So yeah, we could have saved ourselves a lot of time and headache, because what we ended up doing is we, like, again, 9 months of back and forth, horrible anxiety, like losing weight, not fun, just wanting to get this deal done so that we can move on. And
were you still running the business at the same time?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And we've always taken the approach of like, even if mom and dad are fighting, don't let the kids know. Like, the business comes before everything. But yeah, at one point I was like, you know what, like, we can't keep doing this. We need to lock ourselves in a room with a whiteboard until we come out of this as business partners. And that's exactly what we did. And yeah, the agreement he offered me at the time was basically 25% of the company, straight up, free and clear, for all the work I did to help him grow it, which was amazing.
Pretty solid.
It was.
And some top employees get like
maybe 10%.
Maybe. Like, I guess it depends on the company, but
totally.
I think you deserve it for sure. You were a big asset for sure.
For sure.
And you're continued to be an awesome asset. And
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so he gave you 25%. How do you walk me real quick through? How do you settle on that? Like, because I also don't know like what his initial. Did he have to put money into the business at the beginning? How do you settle on 25%? That's a lot.
Yeah.
That being said, you were very valuable. Did you feel like that was worth your time? Did you feel like you deserved a little more? How did you feel after that final agreement?
For sure. Well, Sam's brilliant, and he did have some amount of working capital to start the business, but the way he paid for most things, and still what we do to this day, is he charged students a $50 deposit, and he used that money to go fund the business. So really smart guy. In terms of how we reached our agreement, he initially offered me 25%. And I just really wanted more. I don't know why, but 25% didn't feel right to me. And it was just a mental thing. And I said, hey, I want more. And he said, okay, so what are we going to do to give it up? Right? Like, how can we come to an agreement? And so now this is one of my favorite things in the world. And it's like what we were talking to you about. But in every deal, you just have to answer what their biggest fear is and like what the real objections are. And so for Sam, I was like, what is your biggest fear if you give me more? And his biggest fear is that I grow with the business, I get disenfranchised, and I leave. And then he has somebody dragging dead weight, 30% of the company, and he doesn't have enough equity to go give to other people who are really talented. And so I said, okay, well, I think I can address that fear by putting my money where my mouth is. How about you give me 30% today? And if I leave anytime in the next 5 years, you can get back 15%. I'll give it back. You can use that to go find another co-founder. The business will be plenty valuable at that point. How does that sound?
That's a great offer.
It was
a great
offer.
Lesson too for any young founders out there listening, or
people
who want to earn their keep.
And honestly, man, like, there is always a deal to be had. I think a lot of people walk away from deals when things get emotional. People get angry, people say something that hurts somebody's feelings, but like, there's probably a deal out there that addresses their concerns and yours, and you just need to find what that is by listening.
For sure.
And so that worked out.
I fully agree.
Yeah.
And so at that point, did you feel Did anything change once you got that equity, or it's same old business, running the company?
No, it changed the way I viewed everything in my life, right? And here's the last thing that I'll give a ton of credit to Sam is Sam, not once in my entire time working with him, has ever low-broed me, with or without the equity. He's always said, this is my business partner. He's my equal. He has full buying power. He has full signing power. I trust his judgment through and through because he knows that I'm good at certain things and I know that he's good at certain things. And we both knew what our lane was. And so I admire that about him, is that he just knew early on to trust. And so because of that, I treated this business like it was my own. Everybody I meet, I was proud to say that I was a co-founder of the company. And so when we grew older and that network started to compound and everybody we meet starts to compound, you start meeting more important people that can help you. Having 2 people being the freaking champion of a company was like life-changing. Yeah. Everybody he meets gets to hear about our business. And everybody I meet in a totally different lane with a totally different personality gets to hear. And so it doubled our output. And that was amazing.
What are your guys' official titles? Who's who?
So technically Sam is CEO and I'm COO. Nice. The funny part is we are really both, I'm pretty details driven and I'm pretty operations systems. He is very like self-starter. I'm going to get a new deal going, really good at sales. But we're both sales-based entrepreneurs. Yeah. So like in terms of owning new deals and deal flow and sales for the company, it's always been the 2 of us dividing and conquering, and we just get there very differently.
Nice. Speaking of deals, right? Let's talk about the thing that probably most people want to hear, which is Shark Tank, right?
Sure.
I want to hear about that deal, right? How does that happen? Did you need to go on Shark Tank? Were you trying to raise money? Or, because I think you're kind of anti-raising if you can, right? Yeah. Obviously, there's a lot of other benefit, but talk me through that. How does that come about?
For sure. So Shark Tank all started, actually, technically we applied when we were in college. We applied when we were in like junior and senior in college, and we submitted this 5-minute online application. And then you don't hear anything for months.
That's it? It's that easy?
5 minutes. Super quick. And anybody can do it. You just literally go to ABC and you apply. It takes 5 minutes. You basically put in revenue, number of employees, like brief description. And they're basically like, is this interesting or not? Then we got a call in March of that year. And they said, guys, we want you to fill out this application and then film a video. You got to film a video of yourselves highlighting your company. Here's the talking points we want you to hit in the video. Send us the video and then fill out this paperwork. The paperwork is insane. It was 60 pages of handwritten application. You could not type it. You had to handwrite it for each founder and then another 60 pages for the business. So it took us weeks to do this.
Like what kind of questions?
They want to make
Security.
Yeah. Well, they're a TV show. So they want to know what was the biggest struggle you had in your family life. They want to know a lot of stuff.
Oh, okay.
How can we make a story out of you? Are you, a good person to be a product on TV? And so we filled it out, submitted it. We thought we were the shit. We thought we were basically in the final round. So we went to the bar that night and we told everybody, we're going on Shark Tank. Like, it's a thing.
That was like me with Love Island.
Yeah. We thought we were there. We were like, dude, we just crushed that shit. Like, we weren't even close is the reality. So then 2 years later, when we moved to Austin, business was a lot more mature. We said, you know what? We were close. Let's just try again. We submitted the 5-minute application. Nothing, same thing. Get a call in March, 4 months later. And they said, once more, gentlemen, how about you guys fill out the personal applications with updated details? You have to submit new ones. And how about you make a new 8-minute video? And so this time we were like, all right, it took us 3 weeks last time. The business is actually a real business and we need to work on it. So we're just going to lock ourselves in my apartment for the entire weekend until it's done. And it sucked. So we did that. So we spent like 48 hours, filmed the video. Like,
is it just you sitting there? Hey, my name's Matt and my name's,
Yeah.
Or is it you're supposed to make like a cool edit, or what is it? What is it?
So the first time we went balls to the wall when we were in college, we hired the editor. We made it like a hype beast production, and it was like a basketball highlight tape, which didn't go anywhere. And I actually think that worked against us now, because the second time we filmed it direct to camera, looking there, and I think why they liked the second one better is because if you have all the hype beast editing stuff, you can't tell if you're entertaining or if it's just the editing.
Yeah.
So like just being direct to camera, you can kind of just tell like, is this person fun to talk to or do they suck?
And would they actually be good on stage?
Yeah.
Or are they using the edits and the music and all that to make up for a lack of personality, whatever?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we submitted the second time, and then the next time we got callbacks. So then you start meeting with a production team. And again, this application funnel, at least to my knowledge, is like 40,000 people do the 5-minute step. Then I think about 1,000 companies submit like the video step, is my understanding. And then I think like 200 people go into this pre-production routine where once a week You're meeting with your producers. They're saying, okay, now tell us what your like 1 minute, 30-second pitch is going to be. That cute little Shark Tank, like jumping, hey, this is me, sharks. This is my product. And then they're like, design your set, draw it on a piece of paper. What do you want it to look like? And so you just...
So all those 200 people get to present, or it's even smaller than that?
No. And so again, I hope I don't botch the numbers, but I'm pretty sure about half of those people actually get to go to LA for the production day. And then I think of those, depends on how many people they want to air in a given season, but I think they have like 20 episodes, 4 companies an episode, so maybe 80 actually get aired.
Makes sense.
So flying out to Culver City, California was like a crazy experience. I think the part that I attribute the success on the show to is we were prepared like I'd never done anything to that extent. Like I, every single day, would stare at the numbers on a spreadsheet and I would click through multiple different tabs. I had every like revenue mark, every profit number, every number of employee number for every year.
Did you kind of put the business on hold while you were doing this a little bit? Because that's a lot of studying, you know?
It was a lot of studying.
Or were you doing both?
No, we were doing both, but it was every evening, right? And so...
You were out of college at this point, right?
Yeah, so we were full-time. Okay. So we were in Austin, and so we would literally get our friends every evening. We'd position them in 5 chairs in a conference room in my apartment, and I would say, I want you to be an absolute dick to me. Like you're going to be the sharks and I'm going to present to you and I want you to say things that literally you know about me that you know would get under my skin, and I want you to get under my skin. And so people would say like horrible insults to me that like they knew would get me going, like talk about like major character flaws I have. Yeah. And I'd have to hold my tongue and smile at them and keep pitching and so literally preparing for that is what I think made me able to produce when I was actually on television.
Dude, I haven't seen the episode. I don't know how I haven't seen it, but I got to go watch it.
I'll send it to you after this.
Hell yeah, please do. So
yeah.
You were prepared like fuck.
Yes.
Get out there. Just you two, right?
It was just us two.
Was it scary, or were you like, we're gonna kill this thing?
Oh, it was both, right? It was terrifying, and I was like, I've never prepared for anything like this, so I feel good. And we were just trying to gamify it, man, right? Like at that point, we were like, hey, the biggest fear that we have is they basically make you walk down the carpet, stand on an X, and then look at the sharks silently for about 60 seconds while they set the cameras. We were like, fuck that.
Oh, shit.
We're like, how do we skip that step? We're like, we don't want to do that. And they're like, you can't. And we're like, no, we can. And so we came up with why don't we get wheeled in on a human-sized box? Everybody thought that was like creative marketing. Like we just wanted to skip the step where we just looked at them for a minute silently so we weren't anxious. So that's why we did that. And then when we got on the show, like the reason we were so dialed and like saying things really quickly is because we didn't want them to be able to clip us and make us look stupid. So we would try and cut them off almost at the last word of their questions so that we could quickly jump in and get an answer so it couldn't be dubbed.
So glad you asked that, Mark.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's how we played the game. And I think we just had fun. We were up there. It was the two of us. We were smiling. We were just pitching out of our ass. And it was all true, right? Every number we had a good business. It was doing 2 million top line at the time, and it was profitable. Only on 23 different campuses. And we were like, hey, I think we have a winning formula. We just want a shark to partner with us. And so the decision to raise wasn't about the money. It was...
Which is a good position to be in.
Totally. And that's what makes investors want it even more, right? Companies that don't need the money are the best investments because then it's just gas on the fire because it's already working. And so we pitched. We got offers from 4 out of the 5 sharks, which is like a dream. And then it was like a lot of back and forth, a lot of bidding. And we had a hard limit in our brains if we were not going to give up more than 15%, no matter what.
Yeah.
We would have walked away from all 4. And then Mark came in at the very last second, the 1 yard line, and he offered $250K for 12%.
What was the original ask?
$250K for 5%. Yeah.
That's tough.
Well,
did you lowball on purpose?
I don't
expecting like some, because no one is ever willing to give you what you ask for unless it's like it's very rare on Shark Tank.
On Shark Tank specifically, let's just say that they have celebrity power and they know that their name carries a lot of weight, so they get good deals.
Yeah.
And I don't think the deal I got was unfair. I think Mark gave us the deal of a lifetime because it's paid itself over 100 times. But yeah, in terms of like raw valuation, if I went to you and asked for a check, it would probably be at a different value than
$250K for 12%, you said?
That's what he offered. And then, so we pitched $250 for 5. He offered at the 1 yard line $250 for 12. And he was the shark we wanted the whole time. And so we countered at $300 for 8. And he was like, no. And he like smiled. He's like $250 for 10 and we'll do it right now. And then we took the deal and we've been working with them ever since.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
And what kind of impact has that had? I'm sure everyone's curious.
Yeah. Mark is exactly what you expect, right? Like what you see is what you get. He's very authentic. He is insane at how he manages his time. Like his big thing is he manages like 400 companies. So if you want to reach him, you can get out of him what you put in. So I email him once a week. Like this was one of his requests as an investor when we onboarded was give me a weekly email and just tell me what's going on. Give me the good, the bad, and the ugly. It can be a couple bullet points. It can be a couple paragraphs, whatever you feel you want to tell me.
Even if it's not necessary?
Yeah. And I took that to heart and I was like, dude, like I get to communicate every single week with one of the most powerful people on the planet, somebody I've looked up to my whole life. Like I'm going to take this. Even if we didn't get a ton done that week, I'm going to give him the weekly update. And so I just took this and I found that not only was it a good way to continuously connect with Mark, dude, it doesn't matter. If you email him at 8 p.m. on a Saturday when he's on the way to the Mavs, he'll snap respond in 20 minutes. And he'll be like, good stuff. Or he'll be like, call the lawyers. Or he'll
Is it short responses? Like,
yeah, it's billionaire
nice
responses.
job, period, ... That's like, I had a mentor who was very similar, never grammatically correct. Wait, so.
It's like dad in the group chat hitting you with the thumbs up.
Nice, yeah. Hey, dad, I just got the deal of a lifetime. Nice.
Thumbs up.
Wait, so that's interesting though, because normally so I'm raising right now and I'm intending on giving like a quarterly report. Some people do once every 6 months, right? Once a week is crazy, especially for someone with that kind of, that kind of shit going on.
Totally.
My dad, it's funny, my dad's a doctor, started a business and emailed Mark Cuban about it. Emailed him, I think, like 20 times, just following up. Yeah. Finally, Mark just hit him back with, no thanks, period.
Yeah.
It's funny as hell. But that's sick, though. And so he's actually given, do you think, this is my question.
Sure.
Do you think more value has come from Mark from his name or from his input overall?
So surprisingly both, right? And
if you had to pick one. But yeah, let me hear what you're saying now.
If I had to pick one, well, I'm going to say that the credentialing it gives when somebody like Mark Cuban takes a chance on you, I think has been a dramatic change in my life, right? For whatever reason, it's not for whatever reason, he has an amazing track record as an investor. And so when I get to meet people either personally or professionally, if I tell them that piece of information that Mark's our lead investor, it changes how they talk to me and it changes the seriousness of how people take me. So I'd say that was the biggest impact. But in terms of like where I value Mark the most personally, it's his input, right? And so I've had moments when I'm like in the dog trenches. We made a lot of mistakes since bringing on Mark. We tried to outsource a big component of the business. That first year of scaling, absolute disaster. And I had days where I was like wanting to quit. And Mark brings a different perspective of just like, guys, I get sued every single day. It ain't nothing. Get back in the office. You're young. This is not going to be even a blemish on your record. And he just has that perspective because he's been doing it his whole life,
That's a great answer, honestly. I think, and that's a great perspective too. Talking about Albert, who's a good friend of yours, founder and CEO of ProMix. I asked him for advice the other day on someone who wants to come join our team, for a piece of the company, and he goes, "Yeah, but what else are you gonna like?" He's like, he said, "How much cooler is your story gonna be just being able to say this guy is involved?" It's beyond just what can you do for the business. It's like, what does that do in your personal life? I can only imagine how cool that must be when you're at a dinner and someone goes, "Yeah, this is my boy Matt. He owns this awesome company." And Mark Cuban's his investor. I totally see why people would be like, "Oh, that's awesome," right?
For sure. And honestly, in the first couple months, it was like the coolest thing in the world. And now since, I actually try very actively to not bring it up, unless it's like in a very business context, because I think it can garner sometimes the wrong message, the wrong attention, and it can kind of become like a egotistical thing.
I could imagine why it would also maybe get annoying too, people asking that a lot. But I do obviously see why it gives credibility. And I was even talking with someone today, because I have who is it? I was talking with someone today about my networking group, and they were like, as soon as they say for some reason, as an entrepreneur, you can have a $2 million a year business, but if you tell people you have investors, they will take you more seriously than a $10 million business with no investors. Because what it tells the general public or whoever you're at dinner with or having a meeting with, it shows that some other person who also has success has at least given a stamp of approval and that you're not a crook, essentially, because you could be.
No, and I think, I think that is such a benefit to raising. And I just think that, again, most people, especially young founders, like if you're going for a big swing and you want to take a venture play, like you said, you want to try and be the next Gymshark, right? You want to try and beat them out, right? If you
not
need
Gymshark, but
sorry, not Gymshark, Lulu.
Yeah.
My bad.
Different niche, but 100%, same thing.
Like if you want to go big, like you're going to need to raise money. My goal has never been to go big. My goal is like, how do I learn a lot? How do I make a business that's like, I want to hit a base hit, not a home run, right? And I think with enough time, it might turn into a home run financially. But like, I just think most people should realize that entrepreneurship is risky enough. And if you can de-risk your life a little bit, right? Like I worked my way into this business as an employee. I proved my value. I got a little piece of the pie, right? I didn't just go all in and start something. And the same goes for raising, right? Like we could raise right now. We're in a prime position to, or I could just take all the profits that we made, make a couple key hires, grow a little slower so that I don't get it out of my hands. Because if you raise so fast that it's growing at a place where your brain can't keep up, that's when you get really, really bad outcomes. That's when founders get screwed.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I'm curious, are you still to this day in full grind mode? It's the only thing you do, or have you been able to like, okay, we're profitable, or like I can go to some dinners throughout the week. I can have fun, relax.
Yeah. The biggest thing for me is there was a switch where I was like pretty close to burning out last year, the first year after Shark Tank. And I was like, okay, if I keep working like this and I hate my business, I'm going to be the least productive, least valuable team member because I hold too much responsibility and I'm not happy. So I basically have to find a way to find some balance and treat this like a marathon. Because in my industry, it's like a service business. It's not really going anywhere. We have long-term agreements with schools. It's like this sweaty thing that took forever to build, but it's also hard to fall down.
Yeah.
And so the only thing I need to do is just stay in the game. And if I just stay in the game for like another 3 to 5 years, I really believe it will be beyond the financial outcome that I want.
Nice.
And so, yeah, now to me, it's like seasons, right? Like right now in particular is grind mode, like just because it's sales time. This is when universities make their decision for the spring. So this is when I know I need to be on. But yeah, when it comes time to the spring, we have such a big operations team of like 14 people that solely focus on ops.
Nice.
I'm not as needed, right? And so, working a normal 40-hour week is good.
Cool. Well, there's 2 last things I want to talk about, and we talked about this a little before the pod, but the importance of finding mentors, good teachers. Obviously, it's so much easier to grow and climb the mountain when you have help, especially from someone who's already done it before.
Sure.
Are you allowed to talk about specifically who one of your mentors is, or?
I can give a general description.
Okay.
Yeah.
So talk to me about like who is your mentor, and just walk me through like how you found him and how you convinced this guy to help you out, which it sounds like it's been very impactful.
It's been amazing. Yeah. I mean, at high level, my opinion on mentors is most people should throw that word out of their vocab. And I think you should treat it as like, how can I just make a friend? And like make a friend in business, right? Because when people get into the whole mentoring, like weird tick for tack stuff, it never works, right? Like just try and be friends with someone. If you guys vibe, they're going to want to help you. That's my preface.
I agree.
But yeah, the way that we came into this person who's now an amazing advisor of the company is literally during one of my darkest days last year, I reached out to bankers and I was like, I need to know what it would be like to sell the company now, later, or I need to learn all my outcomes. So my friend was an investment banker up in New York, somebody I knew from Wake who was in my pledge class. And I said, hey, do you know anything about my industry, right? Like this is really hard. Like I need to know if we're going to have to keep growing it. What are exit options? Like tell me about it.
Yeah.
And he said, you know what? I don't really know your space that well, but I used to work under this account of this guy. I think you should talk to him. I think he'll know your space well. He worked in an adjacent industry in storage and moving and did really well for himself. I said, okay, cool. So I went to him and I was like, hey, on a Zoom call, hey, can you give me an advice on like, what is it like to sell a company? Like, is this a good idea? Like all this stuff. And he was like, you know what, gentlemen? He's like, I just got to tell you, I'm listening to your story. You're so young. You're so hungry. Yes, you've made some mistakes. Like, yes, you're in a tough time right now, but he's like, you guys would be crazy to sell it. He's like, in fact, I think you should try and buy all of your competitors. And he's like, if you ever need help doing that, that's how I built my entire career. He's like, I did 43 business acquisitions and, he took a company public. He did a lot of amazing stuff. And he said, hey, you guys shouldn't sell. You guys are young, you're hungry. I think you have more things right than you know. And he's like, I think you guys should try and buy your competitors and build a fucking empire. And I was like, whoa, that one hit me like a truck. I thought I was going to get out. I thought I was going to make some money. I thought I was like done. And I was like sitting there on the couch that night and I was like telling my girlfriend the story. I'm like, he basically just kind of big bro'd me. He was like, yo, do you want to sell and take the easy way out? Or do you want to build a goddamn empire and I'll help you do it? And he instilled belief in me. I was like, what do you think? Like, what should I do, Emma? And she's like, I think you'll be kicking yourself for the next decade if you take what's working now with Mark Cuban on your cap table that you've put in 7 years and you sell it today. She's like, you have so much more you can do here. You're just going through a hard time. She's like, I believe in you. And I was like, whoa. So that was one of the biggest directional changes in my life is like, you know what? I'm in. I'm going to grow this until it's massive. And at the time though, we were going through a lot of shit, right? Like we were dealing with a profit problem. We carried a small loss that year. We were dealing with a horrible vendor issue that controlled a huge part of my life. So I said, you know what? It's not the right time to bring on this advisor, right? Because he's somebody who would make introductions that pour gas on the fire. And if you have a broken business, you don't want to grow it.
Or if the fire can't be contained in a good way, it'll burn everything else down, you know? So.
Yeah, you put gas on a bad business and you just have more bad shit, right? And so I was like, I need a year to fix this. And I told him this. I'm like, hey, I really do want to take you up on that offer. I would love to have you on the cap table. I would love to bring you on as an advisor, but I got to fix some shit first. And he was like, you know what? No problem. Like, he's like, I think you could handle it now, but he's like, I respect if you can't, right? He's like, you can take your time and fix the things and prove to yourself that you can do it. And so, you know, I was in Naples like a year later visiting my girlfriend's family and I emailed him. I'm like, hey, do you want to grab dinner? Right? I think the least I could do is take you out to dinner and see if we can chat about what we could do in the future. And I said, all right, I think we're ready. I think we turned everything around. We made the business profitable. We changed all the operations. We brought everything back in-house. We don't use third parties anymore. And I think everything's ready for you. And he was like, whoa, right? And so he wanted it even more at that point. And he was willing to take that risk. And so I always just say, like, wait for the right time for the deal. Because again, he wanted to do the deal a year earlier when he was most excited when he first met us. And I said, hey, I don't think I'm ready.
What did he want? And what did he get? What did you get and what did you have to give?
So short answer is he is an amazing M&A person. Like, he did mergers and acquisitions his whole career, and he's basically like, very, very awesome deal for us. He said, if I help you buy companies, I want a small piece of the transaction. And he said, if I bring in massive deals to the company, like I introduce you to somebody that's a huge line of revenue, give me a small percentage of the revenue. And it was beyond fair. I mean, it was worth his weight in gold, and it was like a risk-free offer to me. Right. And so I really respect that he did it that way, where he's like, even though he could have commanded a massive retainer, right? Hey, you have to pay me $50K a month up front. He could have done that, but he didn't, because he really like wanted it to be like, I only want to get paid if I help you win.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, dude. Last but not least, perfect way to finish it up, because we're going to end here.
Sure.
You know, we talked about this. You hate business plans, at least like long-term ones, right?
Sure.
So how do you go about planning out? Can you explain why?
Sure.
And then, you know, because everyone always, investors will ask you, your friends will ask you, what's your 5-year plan? Where do you want to be in 5 years?
Yeah.
Why do you not like that? And what do you do instead?
Well, I think we're terrible at predicting the future. I think if you tell somebody what they're going to be in 5 years, it's almost 100% going to be wrong, right? Like, I wouldn't have guessed that I'd be living in Austin, Texas. I grew up in Massachusetts. I went to a school in North Carolina. I moved to Texas. That's weird. Most people in Massachusetts stay there forever. And so the same applies for business. Like, I don't think you can predict, like, oh, if I just pull these levers, to think you have that kind of control on the market is where I think most people go wrong, right? Most people can't change a market. They need to react to the market. And so that's why I'm like, if you just get started, you start moving your feet, it becomes more and more clear what the next growth avenue is. And I'll give a more like concrete example. We got into this by basically saying, hey, we're going to serve students and students only, and we're going to pick up their stuff, store it, redeliver it. And then if we want to sign universities as partners, we got to go to these conferences. And so we go to these conferences, we meet schools, and we try and work into a partnership with them. We sign a deal. And it turns out that at all these conferences, there's tons of other vendors who sell into universities. And we ended up just becoming friends with them. Like, you need something to do at the end of a day at a conference. You want to go to the bar, grab a drink with the other vendors. They're all cool. We're all talking. We're all hanging out. And then after like 4 years of going to these conferences, or 3 years of going to these conferences, we realized, hey, who who installs the furniture that you guys sell when these colleges buy millions of dollars worth of furniture from you? Like, who puts it in the rooms? Who sets it up? Who configures it? Who builds it? And they're like, oh, like it's a shit show. Like, it's always a local moving company. We get quotes. It's like all done via email. It's a disaster. Like, we never trust the same crews. It's a different guy in every city. And we're like, boom. Like, okay, well, what if we did it? Because we're a national company. We have moving crews in every single city. We want to utilize them for more stuff. And we spent all the time, money, and effort to hire, recruit, and train them. Why don't we have them do more? So we said, give us a chance. Let us do one install. And so we went to colleges this summer and literally like lightning. I mean, I think we did 15 installs in the first 6 weeks of launching the service. And these are really big week-long projects in which you're hauling furniture all day, very high ticket revenue stuff. And I think this year it's probably literally going to be half of our business revenue.
Wow. And that you could have never expected that or planned for that.
Well, and nobody,
well said, dude.
Nobody grows up saying, I want to install furniture commercially. But, you know, I started a business. You want to keep moving the feet and it becomes clear.
Nice, man. Well, dude, yeah, that was perfect. Perfect way to end it. Super valuable. I know I learned a lot. I hope everyone listening learned a lot. So thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me on, Lucas. Appreciate it.
And yeah, I'm going to link, you know, Matt's not, you know, too big on personal branding yet. Yet. I've been trying to get him in it because I tell him it's the most valuable way to make connections. But
it's true.
Do you want us to link your stuff, at least your Instagram? Sure. You're probably going to have a couple people reach out, ask you some questions if you're willing to answer.
Of course.
Yeah, but dude, thank you for coming on. That was awesome.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, Lucas. Thanks, dude.